Hi, I'm Tori Hageman. A good friend and customer recently commissioned me to do 20 small paintings that she wanted to give as gifts, and she gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted, which was great. I've had the best time doing it. But as I finished painting number 20, I ended up with this special little jewel, and when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is the super loose kind of style that I've always wanted in my paintings, but I've never quite been able to achieve. I wonder why this one looks so much looser and impressionistic than the other paintings, the other 19 I've just done. So then I thought, I wonder if I could recreate this painting. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to show you exactly how I did this. And not to give too much away, but there was a happy accident in this original painting. So I'm going to recreate that as well and let you see the difference between this and some of my other recent paintings. And hopefully this will give you some good tips on how you can loosen up your own paintings. Stay tuned. So as I was painting these little paintings for my friend, I'd like to say that every one I hit it out of the ballpark, but these are some of the better ones. There were a few that were kind of dogs, and that's the first happy accident. For this little painting that I did, it was actually a reject. It didn't make the cut, and so I decided to paint over it. I had some paints left on my acrylic Stay Wet palette, and so I decided just to use what I had. What I'm dipping into that red is a Naphthol Crimson, which is a really beautiful red. When you mix it with white, it's just a beautiful pink if you've never tried it. I'm adding a little Naples yellow or cad yellow into that with some white. And so I'm just recreating on this other little reject the same color palette that I used on the little jewel that I'm trying to recreate. After I put that first coat on, I took a hair dryer to it, dried it, and with the first painting, you could see a little bit of the original painting underneath, so I did put a second coat on both of these. I was looking at my favorite artist, Teddy Parker's website, and just drooling over her works, and she had a little round vase with some rosebuds in it, so I thought I would give that a try. I've done round vases before and they're just beautiful, and I usually trace a glass or something that I have, so I kept trying different objects until I got the correct size. In my original painting I used a pencil, but I didn't think you'd be able to see that, so I'm using a piece of chalk, and the chalk it was sticking out past the glass so far, it ended up not working. So I had to kind of dust that off and hold it at a better angle. But that's the nice thing about chalk. So that's on acrylic paint and it's just coming right off. So let me try that again. And again, I'm really kind of using that so that you can see in the video where the lines are. But there's something really pretty about having a round vase. It can do beautiful things with the reflections in the water. It's just a nice shape. I like it a lot. So here I put the original painting that I'm trying to duplicate, and I'm just going to start drawing in those buds. And when you think about it, a rosebud it has a little circle at the top, then it dents in slightly, and then it's got a bulbous bottom. It's just a really simple shape to do. You don't have to do anything fancy to get it to look right. The more open the rose is, of course, the more petals are exposed, and then it gets a little more complicated. But these were just super simple, and I was trying to keep it really loose, really fast, not overthinking it. And that's what I did in that first painting, just trying to keep it really loose. Then I was deciding, and I just drew in some leaves, and I was trying to decide where to put that water line in. So I drew that, put in the back of the water line, and you'll need to decide if you're going to have a tabletop where that's going to land. But that was pretty much it. That was getting my drawing in. I am using yellow oxide, or you could use yellow ochre for the shadow part of these yellow flowers. The other yellows that I'm using are Naples yellow and cad yellow medium, and then I'm mixing some white in with those. where I want it to be lighter. So great color harmony, keeping the palette super simple. And then I'm using a little turquoise color with the background and a green for the leaves. So I like the fact that there were so few colors in this painting. I think that was really effective. And the thing with yellow flowers, you can use just one stroke of that yellow oxide and it really reads like a shadow. It's so effective. Here I'm getting in that circle at the top, and I'm going to try to do this whole painting using a fairly large, given the size of the canvas. That's just a little 6x6 canvas. I'm using that flat brush the entire painting, except for a couple of places where I'm going to get out my little favorite liner brush to do the water line, to do the little folds of petals right at the top of those flowers. I'm going to go back over it with a liner. But other than that, everything else, I'm using a flat brush. And I love flat brushes. I think they give a more painterly look than using a round brush. I find when I'm there, I'm just using that little liner to go back in and dropping some of that yellow ochre in. At the end of the painting, I'll do that mark again using some white, just giving that feeling that there are a few petals. You see how quick and loose I'm doing that, not overthinking it. But I was going to say, I think for me, when I use a flat brush, I tend to use fewer strokes. I load my brush with paint. I put down more intentional strokes, and it just has a more painterly look. If I had a round brush, I would be fiddling with it. I would be swirling that around, mixing things together. It just, for me, a flat brush helps ensure that I'm going to get a much more painterly look. So one of the differences that I noticed when I was looking at the original painting and thinking, why does this look looser and different from my other paintings? And one of the key reasons, I think, is that pinky coral background was showing through in a number of places that really changed the look of the painting. For example, here's the original painting, and you can see I do have the yellow ochre in there, but you also see that pinky red showing through, and that's where I didn't put the paint on so solid everywhere. I left it in places where it was thinner, places where it was thicker, and you could see it. Down there in the leaves, you see places where I left the pure coral. I didn't even cover it up at all. So let me show you that compared to some of the other paintings that I was doing right at the same time. So the one on the left, I just had a solid Naples yellow background. And look at the one on the right, our favorite one, with all the different colors and that little bit of coral showing through in bits and pieces. Here's a comparison of the hydrangea on the left. That solid background is actually that Naphthol crimson, which is just a beautiful color. And I love the painting on the left, but you see the difference in the two, how the one on the right just looks more painterly. It looks looser, it looks more impressionistic. So just trying to help you see the differences between the two and why I believe that one on the right has a looser feel to it. Here I'm going back with that little liner brush, just doing a few little quick swirls in basically white with a touch of the yellow in it, just really fast. And I've sped this up to twice the speed, but I'm taking just a mixture of different greens. I'm adding a little yellow to make it lighter. I'm adding a little more sap green to make it darker, and a little white to make it lighter. But again, I've sped this up, but still, you can see I'm just barely just putting in a leaf design and then filling it in. I am not spending any time at all trying to get a super proficient drawing, just putting it in real loose. And again, I think the looseness is what has led to this looking so impressionistic. And I just love it. I tend to be someone who likes to draw inside the lines and get things a little more precise, but I just love the looseness of this. And it's a lot more fun to paint that way too. It's just very freeing to paint that way. So now I'm dipping into the turquoise with a lot of white, just And I'm leaving little bits of that pinky coral showing underneath. I don't want it completely covered up. I've determined where my tabletop line is. Because I had used a fair amount of paint on those roses and I was afraid they were still a little wet, I decided to dry those first before I put the background in. And I did that several times with this painting. Here I'm going back with that same turquoise, but I'm using a lot of white. And again, I'm just letting some little peaks of that corally background shine through. As I move around to the right corner, I'm actually there using Naples yellow and a lot of white. So I'm using the same colors over and over. And that shift in color in the background is very subtle. Now you see me going back in where it's a little more turquoise. So I'm just varying that background a little bit. And again, I think that is one of the key things to making something look more painterly rather than having such a solid background. I've got not only that peachy coral showing through, but now I've got shifts of yellow and turquoise and white. Great color harmony, but it's a lot more interesting to me than just a solid background, which is what I so often use. Here I'm using my liner to put in that water line. And this is another tip, I think, for keeping something loose. Don't worry if that's not a precise line. I think when it has a little bit of a wobble in it, that really just makes it look more painterly. And if you try to get one area of your painting super straight, but leave other things loose, it can look kind of odd. You notice my vase isn't super round anymore. It's kind of round, but it's lost some of its perfection for sure. So often when I'm painting glass, I will paint the back of the glass exactly like the background of the painting. So it looks like the glass is just sitting in front of the background. But for this one, I started mixing up the colors and the placement. So I think this is another thing that made this look more painterly and looser and a little quirky, perhaps, compared to some of my other paintings. So I'm going back in, I'm putting in the stems first, and I put in way too many stems. So you've got 4 flowers, there should be 4 stems. I think I put in 6 or 7 stems. I was just having such a good time putting those in. But as I put in the water, I ended up just painting over those. And it's just so easy with acrylics. I kind of go back and forth between, see, I was just way carried away, unless you believe that the leaves had their own stem. Just way too many friends in that little vase, so you'll see me covering those back up. So here I am putting in, using that same yellow, so I'm keeping the same color harmony, but instead of putting turquoise at the bottom of that vase, which you would expect if it's sitting on a turquoise table, I'm just using that yellow again. And you're gonna see me kind of like I did with the background at the top. I'm using the same colors, the yellow and white and turquoise, but I'm using them a little deeper than I did at the top. And I thought the effect of it was just really great. I just so pleased with how this turned out. I think it's really interesting. Um, Yep, just love it. Easy to do, and it was so fun. It was fun just to kind of play and experiment, not take it too seriously. If you don't like it, you can always paint over it or try another one. This has really been something that I've heard so many people who are daily painters say it's so much better to paint small and paint often. And my tendency is to get these ginormous canvases that take days or weeks to paint, and doing these little 20 paintings for this friend of mine, just the freedom to experiment. I had a number of them that I threw out or painted over, and it was okay. It was such a little painting. I didn't have a huge amount invested in the canvas, and it was just really liberating. And I found the more frequently that I was painting, the more that I was experimenting, and I felt like the paintings were getting better and better just over the week or two that I've been working on these. So I really encourage you. And I am painting on canvas panels rather than stretched canvas. So the advantage of these to me is I love being able to paint on a hard surface. It's so different and so much better and satisfying for some reason than painting on a canvas that has some give to it. The disadvantage is, with the stretch canvas, you could just hang that on the wall even unframed. But with this, you would either have to frame it or you could put it on an easel. But they're really cute on easels, on a tabletop, or on a bookcase. They make nice gifts. They're easy to mail this size. I really like these panels a lot. If I could do large paintings on hard panels, I would. Huh, that might be an idea for a future video. But again, you would have to frame it or do something with it to display it. So I'm going to speed this up and let you just see how I finish this up. But you can tell I'm just continuing to add these variety of colors in the water, and just a lot of fun. I want to point out two other things that I think make a difference with this. One is the circle of the water where the plants enter the water. I have made that distinctly different than the water above, or the water below, and the space above. So that's something I would encourage you to do. But notice also in my other paintings, I was so intentional about stems and making the stems real precise. Where in this painting, where I was painting in that background where the stems got thin, I just left them thin. I didn't go back, I didn't fix them. I didn't do a light side and a dark side where normally I put a lot of detail in stems. I just left those stems pretty much victims of what had happened as I was painting around them. And a couple of them I went over, but basically they were just left very wobbly and irregular. And I thought that was fun. I thought that, again, added to that feel of being very loose and impressionistic. Here I'm going back over that waterline, and don't just use pure white to do your waterline. I'm using a soft white. I'm using some turquoise. That if when you see that up close, there's a variety. I'm using that same liner, just putting in some quick and easy lines on those leaves. I didn't put a lot of detail on them. I didn't do a lot of light and dark sides. Here I'm just going over that top of that rose again, and just making a little more of a statement that there are some petals out there, but just super loose, adding in one little fold of a petal coming out. And here you can see the comparison between the original and the second painting. It was really encouraging to me that I could pretty much duplicate that painting and do it so quickly and easily. And it shows me that was not just a freak accident, that I can get a looser look. Here I'm comparing it to this other painting, and just the difference in a solid background versus a more painterly one. With this next painting, I actually have a blue on the bottom and a green on top, but there's something about having the glow of that pink showing through. It's just a completely different feel than having the darker colors. I was looser with my brushwork in the right hand painting, and again letting that pinky coral show through in the background. I think it just made such a difference in keeping that super loose. I like both of these paintings a lot. I like this next one very much, but it's just a really different look. It's just the kind of look you're after. I like both very much, but my quest has been to be a looser artist, and I feel like I've just unlocked some keys there. And I hope this video has been helpful for you. I would appreciate a thumbs up, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video that's coming out soon. I also have a free gift for you if you want to visit my website at VictoriaHagaman.com. There you will also find some very inexpensively priced courses and shorter tutorials, and you can see my available paintings. 25% of my painting sales goes to hydrating humanity to build water wells. Thanks a lot. God bless.